Hello, and welcome to Growing in Uncertainty. My name is Tess Miller, and through my seminar and coaching business Wings Unfolded, I help people who love what they're doing but they're not sure where it's going. My intention with these videos is to deepen my own experience of stuck and with any of the stuck places in my life, and to share what I learn with as many people as possible. My hope is that by sharing what I'm learning about stuck, then we can all grow in uncertainty together. We all have those big stories from our lives. I like to think of them as origin stories, where we came from, where we first learned about who we are and what we're up against in this life. And one of the biggest origin stories from my life is actually my career origin story. I tell this story a lot, so I apologize to those of you who have heard me tell this story in the past. But the origin story of my career is really what outlines for me what powerful decision making is all about, and how we can work with decisions that we've made in our lives that maybe we have some regret about, or maybe we've made decisions that we regret, and then that makes us concerned about making decisions going forward in the future. So that's what I want to talk about today, is how we handle the decision-making process, and also how we handle the way we look back on decisions that we've made. So I'm going to do this by telling this origin story of mine about my career in a couple different ways, at least. So the basic story of my career origin is that when I was in middle school and high school, I spent a lot of my free time in music. I was a practicer. Nobody ever had to remind me to practice. I loved the process of learning music. I loved the process of performing music. It just felt right. But then when it came time to thinking of career, I wasn't so sure that I should be a career major, because I wasn't entirely sure what would be, beyond that. What kind of a job would that entail? And so I at first didn't want to be a music major because of that. It just seemed so uncertain. So I stepped away from it until my flute teacher said, "Why don't you try it for a year? And if you don't like it, you can do something else." And that seemed pretty reasonable to me. So I did. I tried it for a year, and 1 year turned into 9, and I ended up with a doctorate in music performance, and then embarked on my career of teaching and performing and basically doing with my life what I'm trained for. That's the basic story of my career origins. But it was not an easy decision for me. It took a lot of energy behind the scenes, even after I'd made the decision to be a music major. And, to be clear, decisions are never easy for me anyway. I'm the kind of person that if I go to the grocery store and I have to choose what kind of toothpaste I want, I will get stuck. Just trying to, sift through all of the little decisions that there are to make in toothpaste brands and whitening or not. What about anti-cavity? So, it's pretty obvious to me why making a big career choice was a hard decision, because that's a big decision. It's life altering. It's life-changing and affecting. So, what ended up happening for me was that my college major decision haunted me basically from the time I started college through my entire career so far. I always asked myself, was that the right decision? Should I have chosen something else? I didn't give anything else a chance. What if something else would have been a better fit for me? I never really felt like I fit in to the music major mold all the time. And therefore, I didn't really feel like I belonged. And not feeling like you belong tends to increase your insecurities in all other areas of life. You know, whether it's making friends or going to perform in a concert or taking an audition or an interview. You know, not feeling like you should be there can really have an effect on your approach to everything. You know, but despite all of that insecurity and questioning, I actually had quite a successful, I have had and still do have a successful music career. And that's what makes me wonder what might have happened if I'd been totally secure with my choice. You know, if I'd actually, you know, had never questioned that, would I have gone for it more? I don't know. We can never know these things, right? But what's important today is taking a look at the story about that story that I just told you, the story that I was telling myself about that story for a very, very long time. So I already told you the basic story of my career path. But the story I was actually telling myself was that I was a wrong fit for a music career because there were certain aspects of the music career that I just felt so unbelievably uncomfortable with that it just made me want to avoid those things altogether. Auditions, for example. Or what about playing in an orchestra full time and that's all you do? And the kind of music that you play is pretty much the same cycle of pieces that all orchestras play. And I don't know, it just for me that seemed not exciting or thrilling. I love performing music, but I also love having control over what I play. And I love to be able to create performances that are going to touch on more of the emotional chord of things, so to speak. And I couldn't necessarily have that with a full-time orchestral career. Same thing with teaching full-time. I felt like, well, I'd have to give up so many other things that I really love in my life if I were going to do that full-time. So I didn't really put my whole self into pursuing either one of those tracks. And part of me wondered, well, maybe that's because I made the wrong decision about my career. Maybe I really shouldn't be in this career in the first place. And that's what made me start to look for signs. You know, the signs will tell me that I made the wrong decision. And, you know, signs might be anything from somebody telling me that I sound horrible or that I didn't get an audition or I didn't get a job or whatever. But I started really, really looking hard for those signs. I also noticed how other people around me seemed to feel 100% confident that the music career was totally right for them. And whenever I would ask them about that, they would give me the look like I had lobsters crawling out of my ears. Like, how could you even think about music not being what you should do? This is ridiculous. And so that ended up making me feel like I was getting away with something. I was actually an imposter. And I decided at some point that I needed to hide my thoughts and feelings about anything else that I was interested outside of music or related to music, but not necessarily teaching or orchestral playing. You know, I was really interested in meditation music and sound healing and performances that centered around creating, you know, feelings of peace and joy rather than playing the hardest or the best known pieces. And again, I was worried that people would think that I wasn't really serious about being a musician. And ultimately, this story that I was telling myself had a pervasive theme. And that theme was, there's something wrong with me. If I told myself that if I want to stay in this career, I have to pretend so that they don't find out. And maybe if I make enough money, then people will see me as a legitimate musician. And maybe someday I won't have to pretend anymore. In fact, if I'm busy enough, I won't have to face the fact that I made the wrong decision in the first place. And to me, by the way, wrong decision equaled failure, and vice versa. So that's the story I told myself about my career choice for a very long time. But then something came across my path that changed the course of things somewhat for me. I learned about the Music for Healing and Transition program, and it was it is a program that certifies musicians in becoming therapeutic musicians. And I knew right away, there was no decision to make. I knew with my body said yes. My mind said yes, and my spirit said yes. This is definitely something I am going to do. There are no ifs, ands, or buts. This is happening. And so I went through the certification program to become a therapeutic musician, and realized that this is how I always wanted to offer music, as a service, as a healing modality, as a way to help people who are struggling or suffering in some way. And that was never how the music field that I had been going through was set up. That's just not what it was. But finally I figured out, oh, this is what I've been craving. And once I started making decisions like that aligned with my values, my beliefs, and who I am, the things in my life that weren't aligning with who I was suddenly became much more energy draining, because I could see such a stark difference between the things that fueled me versus the things that took away my energy. And there was this tug of war inside of myself that I didn't really understand at the time, but what was happening was part of me was fighting still to fit into the old system, and the other part of me was getting that glimpse of what it felt like to be able to really express who I really am and what I want to be doing. And as you can see, I tended to be very worried about what other people thought of me or how I looked to other people on the outside. And to be clear, I never hated my jobs, but I still enjoy teaching and performing when there are performances. But there was always this fear that if I wanted to do other things too, maybe people would think I wasn't legitimate anymore. And then I hit burnout because, like I said, my energy was being drained faster than it was being fueled by the other things I was doing. Burnout made me process not only the decision that I made way back when to become a music major or to become a musician, but it also made me process the decision I'd been making on how I was telling myself the story of my career choice. And one of the most important and valuable things that I learned in this process was this: the narrative we create in our lives shapes our entire life experience. I'm going to say that again. The narrative we create in our lives shapes our entire life experience. But we can choose to create narratives that work for us rather than make us work for them. So remember that my original career choice story was that I didn't fit completely. I was the proverbial square peg. And then one day I found something that did fit, the therapeutic music. My narrative from that point on started to be, I've wasted so much time doing everything wrong in my career. And, you know, basically that proved to me what I had already been looking for all along. You know, I was looking for all those signs telling me that I was doing it wrong. And voila, I found it. There it is. Finding what I did want proved for me once and for all that I was doing it wrong all along. However, believing in a right-wrong system can actually be a stuck trap. Worrying that I'd made the wrong career decision ended up keeping me small. Worrying that I needed to stay busy to prove my worth kept me distracted, and telling myself that I wasted time was just draining my energy even further. At this point, I realized that there was another decision I needed to make. The decision was that I needed to either believe this narrative that I'd made the wrong decision, or it was time to decide to create a new one. You know, it seemed a little fishy to me that it took 25 years to finally prove myself right. That seems a little weird. And I could see how the right-wrong duality didn't work in other people's lives. So why was it operating in mine? You know, I would never, ever tell someone else in my life that they'd made a wrong decision if they decided to change their career track to fit them better. I would see that they needed the experiences that they went through to find what really resonated with them. Why would I tell myself anything differently? So remember, the narrative that we create in our lives shapes our entire life experience. I've known for a long time that my new narrative around my career choice is something along the lines of, I needed the time to truly figure out who I was and what I wanted to do with my unique blend of interests and gifts. But a beautiful visual was recently given to me by a sound healer that I recently visited. The visual that he gave me was of a big space shuttle. And you know how space shuttles, you know, there's the main spaceship that is the ship that's intended to get to space. But then there's all of the millions and billions of dollars worth of equipment around that spaceship that's there for the sole purpose of getting that spaceship into space. And once it's in space, all of that equipment will fall away back to Earth and, you know, fall in the ocean, plummet to its demise, you know, and it seems a little bit wasteful to us, but at the same time, if that spaceship did not have those rocket boosters and launchers and everything, it wouldn't get to space. So, relating that analogy to me, in order to get where I wanted to go, I have to be willing to let go of all the stuff that got me to this point. And you can think about that in your life too. What were all of the things that got you to where you are today? Maybe it doesn't necessarily seem like it relates exactly to where you're going, but you needed all of those experiences. You needed to make all of those decisions in order to lead you to where you are right now, right here. So going through all the questioning and the career uncertainty in my life, while energetically draining, actually kept me on track with where I needed to be all along. And it's time to let go of the right and wrong thinking. It's time to let go of what other people think. And it's time to start trusting myself. So where can you let go of right-wrong thinking? Where can you let go of any worries you have about what other people think of you? And where can you start trusting yourself a little bit more to make the decisions that are in your best interest? My way of handling hard decisions today is to remind myself that we can't control the outcomes of any decisions that we make. And oftentimes with decisions, we have certain expectations, but expectations are often just unrealized hopes that rarely offer us a guarantee. ultimately we'll never know what would have happened had we chosen differently. We can always imagine. We can think that things might have been better had we taken a different path. But we don't know. We'll never know. What we do know is that there is no right or wrong. Life is an ever unfolding process. And if we are always listening to ourselves, we will make choices that line up with who we are now. This may change, our choices may change as we change, but change is part of the process. And as I like to say, change comes from within. So I hope this message resonates with you. Thank you so much for joining me today. It really means a lot to me, and it would really, really mean a lot to me if you would like and or share and or subscribe to any of my social media outlets. I am on Facebook under Wings Unfolded. I'm on LinkedIn under Wings Unfolded. I'm on Instagram under my name, Tess Miller. And I'm on YouTube under my name, Tess Miller. You can find all these videos in the Growing in Uncertainty playlist. And you can also find my website at www.tess-miller.com. There's some free resources for you there. There's some information about my book, The Book of Stuck. You can even buy it there if you would like. And you can stay tuned to any further updates that I have by joining my email list. You can do that on my website. And if there's anything that you would like help with related to a life transition or any place you're feeling stuck in life, please send me a private message. I'd love to help you with anything and work with you in some way. And remember that it's okay to be stuck, but you don't have to stay there. Have an amazing week and take care.